Hello. Today's my birthday. Not the day you're watching this, but the day I've actually filmed this. And what I'd really like for my birthday is my ultimate fantasy car. What would that look like? Well, obviously it'd be electric, it would be fast, probably from a legacy manufacturer that's steeped in motorsport history. But obviously I'm a family man, so I'd need it to be a bit spacious. Something maybe like an estate car, given the country pursuits that a man like me and my advancing years enjoys. And given those country pursuits, it would need to have a little bit of off-road ability, although an SUV is probably too much. So yeah, so a fast electric off-road estate car from a legacy manufacturer. Yeah. If only such a car like that existed. Happy birthday, Bryan. Welcome to the Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo, and of course, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get on to this week's road test of the Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo, it is time for me to do a little bit of housekeeping by asking you to like the videos, subscribe to the channel and press the little bell button down below to receive notification of when our next video goes live. The Taycan Cross Turismo, what is it? Well, it's I suppose in basic terms it's an estate version of the Taycan, although that's probably doing it a little bit of a disservice. I think Porsche would probably prefer us to call it a shooting brake or something like that, something posh sounding. But effectively that's what it is. It's an estate version of the Taycan. It's slightly taller than a standard Taycan because it has a 20mm ride height uplift, if you like, to give it a little bit more off-road ability. But we'll come on to that a little bit later. Porsche have now just announced the GTS Sport Turismo within the Taycan range, which is more of a standard ride height car with the GTS moniker applied to it. But again, that's for another time. But this is what we have here, and it's time, although we've driven the Taycan before in turbo and rear wheel drive form, for us to put this car, which is a 4S, through the full AutoEV road test to see whether or not you really should be spending this amount of money on an SUV, or whether this is going to be every car you'll ever need. Now, as always, we start with styling, and of course regular viewers will know that we're a big fan of the Taycan here at AutoEV. But what have they done to change it to this? Well, most of the changes at the back, which we'll see in just a second. Of course, as I say, there's been an uplift in ride height, 20mm, and you've got these sort of like black arch extensions around the car as well. But this car is also fitted with what they call the off-road design package, which gives it these sort of little wing blades at the side here, a front sort of splitter and a sort of skid pan type of thing underneath, and there's one at the back as well. But the rest of it is kind of regular Taycan from the front, if a little bit taller. So these beautiful sort of like cowled inset headlights, this lovely sort of, you know, double sort of like a straight bonnet up here, and this pointed nose, proper Porsche. And of course it's in its side elevation where you see the real changes to the car. Not only is that extra ride height more visible, but of course you've got that extending roofline out the back to the rear hatch. Visible, as I say, your extra ride height, 20mm extra, as I say, in this off-road design package, including little kind of winglets here, the side sill protectors, and one other one there. I don't really know if they do anything, but they look good. Talking of looking good, these 21-inch optional Cross Turismo design wheels, I think, are probably one of the nicest set of alloys I've seen in a car. I mean, look at them, they're beautiful. They look like something that you get in a Swiss Army knife to take, I don't know, fish hooks out, or the nail it at the hoof of a horse or something. Anyway, gloss black roof rails, which will come in handy when no doubt Porsche sells you that very expensive aerodynamically efficient roof box for you to put your skis in. Of course, if that is your country pursuit, of course. But as I say, it's this bit at the back where you notice the big difference, and it's very, very different to the standard Taycan, because the roofline, as I say, is higher, it extends out, you get this lovely rear spoiler and these beautiful kind of curving rear hips. Let's be honest, fast estate cars, they're just cool, aren't they? If you want evidence of that, RS6, layer cake, Stoke Poges, tell me I'm wrong. Is this Porsche's best looking one? I think so. I think it's definitely much better looking than the Panamera Sport Turismo, and actually that's a car that's kind of grown on me, but I think this is one of Porsche's best designs ever. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. And then of course round the back you've got these lovely this lovely inset light bar that just sweeps across the whole car with the Porsche script in there, blacked out badge, lovely contours down the back end of the car, and then this rear part of the off-road design package, this rear diffuser cum skid plate, and again these extra little kind of winglets on the side. big roof spoiler. Quite a shallow rear window, but actually in fairness, when you're driving the car, it's okay in fairness. Yeah, this is a good looking car. Now of course, the big news is the extra practicality that the Cross Turismo brings over the standard Taycan, and that is a boot space of 446 litres, which will extend to 1,212 by folding the back seats down. There's some small amount of underfloor storage there for your cables, although it does come with this rather big cable bag, which these handy little tie-down straps, but remember, they're not to be used for climbing. So don't go rock climbing using this bag. Thanks for reminding me, Porsche. This can also actually live in the front of the car, which I'll show you in a second, leaving the rear of the car open for all your outdoor country pursuits. Now I don't shoot, but I can imagine that this is probably similar in size to gun, which is my outside country pursuit, sitting down. And of course, will it fit your gun dog? Well, let's try. Yes it will. Yeah, so as I say, up at the front of the car, you've got that extra little bit of space there for your big cable bag, or a small carry-on suitcase, or maybe a couple of, I don't know, dead pheasants or salmon or something like that. Yeah, more than enough, I'd say. And remember, this is an all-wheel drive car, so there is a motor in here, so that's pretty decent room. So what's practicality like in the back seat? Well, it's okay actually, in fairness. Cross Turismo is 11 millimeters longer overall than a standard Taycan, and it's got 4 millimeters longer in the wheelbase. Now that might not sound like a lot, but it just gives a little bit extra sort of like space in here, but you notice it more in head height. Now overall the car sits 30 millimeters higher than a standard Taycan, but bear in mind 20 millimeters of that is in the extra ride height. But still, 10 millimeters in here, that's pretty good, it's okay. I mean, I'm not particularly tall, 5'7", 5'8", and I'm sitting behind myself, effectively, and I've got more than enough space, and I'm even wearing a hat. Obviously, if you were 6 foot, and I think even with this kind of glass roof, you might struggle a little bit to sit behind a driver of similar height. But, you know, again, if it was just children or something, you'd be perfectly okay with that. Now, talking to children, as you can see, my daughter's child seat in here, so you've got the two outer seats which have an ISOFIX in them as standard. Now, I say two outer seats because this car is fitted with the +1 seating, which gives an extra seat in the middle here. So Taycan comes as a 4-seater standard, and in here you would probably just have a little kind of moulded plastic tray, I don't know, for your crayons or whatever children have at the back of cars these days. And that's what you would get. If you go for this optional +1, I can't really see anybody being very comfortable sat there. I mean, no. And you don't have a flat floor, so you've got the storage area here. Okay, there's some rear digital climate controls in here on this particular car. This car's got quite a lot of options, but I'll come on to that a bit later. But there is USB charging ports, which are tucked into the sort of like underneath there, sorry, the base of this seat here. But yeah, I don't really see the point of having the +1 seating, as I say, but that's maybe just me. Storage wise, there's a flip down armrest with a couple of cup holders in it. It'd be nice if they had a cover on them so your arm doesn't fall into them, but at least you got somewhere to put your water bottle or whatever. There are door bins, but it's not huge, as I say, and then there's this little kind of oddment tray here. So it's not massive in terms of storage, but it's okay in terms of the overall space, depending obviously on your height. As I say, if you're children or a smaller adult like me, it's absolutely fine. The seats themselves give good comfort. There's good support round about sort of like the shoulder areas, and that's what I say, probably that standard 4-seat layout is probably the one I would pick if I was you. So the interior of the Taycan, well, we've seen it before on the channel, but it's always worth revisiting it again because it has its good and its bad points. So let's go through it. The things that we love. I love the design of it. I think it looks and feels really special in here. This curved binnacle, which echoes the sort of 5-dial binnacles of the early 911s and my old oval-944. I absolutely just love it. I think it works really, really well. You've got sort of the touch sensitive buttons around the side to adjust sort of like damper settings over here and lights on this side, and obviously you can configure the center screen to how you want it. And that's another thing this car has fitted. It's got the passenger screen fitted, which I say I will come on to that in a second, but I can change the display that I get here depending obviously on what I want. So for instance here I can have it so I've got G-force or all wheels. I don't know what that means, but it's there anyway. And I can change the center one from a map to a power meter. Ooh. And then this one I can change from sort of like media, or I could have my navigation up there. I can change the radio stations with it as well. It's all very, very clever. I really do like it, as I say, it's phenomenal. But the flip side of that is this, and I'm not sure that's really necessary, if I'm honest with you, having the 3 screens. So, in fact, really it's 4 screens, because as well as that, your centre one, this one, and then you've got this one here, and that's another thing that I'm talking about. Now, I know that I've been accused of being a bit of a dinosaur and saying that I like sort of like physical buttons and things like that, but there's an interesting thing has just happened over the last couple of weeks here in the UK, and that is the UK government's decision to, rightly so, ban all interaction with a mobile phone within a car. So in other words, even, you know, not making a call, for instance, if you're changing your playlist on Spotify, for instance, or you were using Waze, unless it was in a sort of like cradle thing, that's fine. But tell me what the difference is by just sort of like doing a couple of clicks on your mobile to then looking down at a screen to change the temperature here. I don't understand where the massive difference is, and I wonder whether or not that manufacturers moving towards touch screens are going to maybe start to fall foul of it a little bit, because if you were stopped by the police for changing your Spotify playlist on your mobile, what's to stop them changing your climate control on your Taycan? Because you still have to physically look down and do it, because although it gives haptic feedback, you have to make sure you've got it. Whereas on a traditional car with a dial or a slider, you can just do it by touch. Anyway, that's, as I say, I'm going to be accused of being a dinosaur, but just my thought. The rest of the cabin, other than the touchscreens, is, well, it's just typical Porsche. It's well built, it feels luxurious, you know, the steering wheel is absolutely perfectly positioned, it's got the right amount of thickness on it, you've got your different drive modes on the little sort of like scroll wheel here. Controls all feel nice, and the physical controls that you do press all feel nicely and weighted. There's good visibility in the car, again, because of the extra sort of like, you know, light that comes in from having that extra height in the roof and the rear. It makes visibility a lot better in the car as well. I've got a couple of cup holders up at the front here. There's a tiny little bit of storage underneath this sort of like rising console, which I love the design of. The door bins are okay, they're fine. You can get sort of things in. You won't get big water bottles in them, but you see you've got 2 cup holders here. The only sort of like downside is this armrest, for some reason, doesn't go all the way up. You've got to kind of hold it in place as you try and get into it, and that's a bit awkward, I think. It's weird. And the wireless charging pad is kind of stuck in there for your mobile. There's USB-C connectivity, there's a 12-volt socket in there. But as I say, the rest of it is fine. These screens here, you can obviously change what you want to see, for instance. So if you want to put the media over there, you can do that. You have your navigation here, or if you want car settings in this one and keep the navigation up here, you can do that, or you can have trip meter. So it's all very, very clever. Very clever. But yeah, it's just maybe a bit overkill for me in terms of having that screen over there in front of the passenger, but there you go. Otherwise, usual Taycan, which means typical Porsche and typically brilliant. Now, all Taycan Cross Turismos come with the larger 93 kilowatt-hour battery, which should deliver, according to WLTP figures, a range of up to 281 miles. It will also take a rapid charge of up to 270 kilowatts, meaning you can go from 0 to 80% full in just over 20 minutes. Charging the car from 0 to full overnight in your wall box is going to be around about 11 hours. Now, as I said earlier, the Taycan Cross Turismo only comes as a dual motor car. In other words, you don't get the single motor rear wheel drive one, they'll all be 4-wheel drive. At the moment, there are 4 models in the range, which is the Taycan 4, the 4S, the one we are driving, the Turbo and the Turbo S. This one, I think, is probably the sort of sweet spot in terms of giving you just enough performance. It produces 490 PS as standard, but bear in mind the Taycans, what they do is they have a sort of overboost facility in launch control, and that will increase the power to 571 PS, meaning this car will get to 62 miles an hour from rest in 4.1 seconds. So if we were looking at 60 miles an hour in the proper conditions, I reckon it would do just under the 4 seconds. I think at the time we'd begin with a 3, if I'm honest with you. And I've always found Porsche's time to be quite conservative. How does the rest of the car feel in terms of its performance? Good, very good. The handling's excellent. As I say, you lose a little bit of the steering feel that the rear wheel drive car has, the base saloon car, because obviously there's no motor at the front of that car. So it's just doing the steering, whereas in this car it's providing drive as well as the steering. But again, for most people, you're not going to really notice that last sort of 10% of steering feel. And for what the Cross Turismo then offers in replace of that, I prefer, because you've got a little bit more compliancy in the suspension. You can feel the extra ride height in the car. So it's not massively different, but you just get a little bit more body roll, which tells you the car's just setting up for that corner, and you can apply a bit more lock if you need to. There's a bit more compliancy with terms of the ride comfort as well, which is nice. And I say, of course, there's just the added extra practicality of having that sort of estate car body, if I'm honest with you. Brakes are standard Porsche fare. They are brilliant. And of course the Taycan has that really clever sort of like regenerative braking system, where it doesn't happen if you lift off the pedal, because Porsche, and in some respects rightly say, they still want the driver to have the control. So in other words, pushing the accelerator to make it go and pressing the brake to make it stop. When you press the brake pedal, the first little bit of travel is regeneration from the motor. The discs only sort of like come into play, the brake discs only come into play when you really stand on the pedal, if you've got to do a big stop. And but it feels natural, it feels really good. There's something about what they've done to the pedal that just, yeah, as soon as you touch it, it makes you think, oh yeah, I'm standing on the brakes, and they're excellent, they really are. Refinement is good as well. I've done a couple of long trips in this car, and I have to say, in terms of road noise, there was a little bit of tyre roar on one of the sections of the M25, and I'll be honest with you, it doesn't matter what you're driving, you get that on those particular concrete sections. But the bigger 21-inch wheels on this car, the Pirelli tyres, they did kind of make themselves known a little bit. So that's the only thing. In terms of wind noise, absolutely fine. I would quite happily load the family in this car and just off to, I don't know, off to the Alps for a bit of skiing, or, as I say, down to Cornwall to enjoy a week away with them. It would be perfect for that. It really brings the car's GT credibilities into play, and I think that's really good. I've always said that the Taycan was a bit more the kind of sports car, the Audi e-tron GT was more of the GT, but I think the Cross Turismo kind of just ticks that box as well. Now, obviously we haven't spoken about the Cross Turismo's party piece, and that is its off-road ability, because it does have some, and probably more than most people would ever need to use. You can raise the suspension up on the car. There's a gravel mode, so you just, down here, you just press gravel and the car just sits up on its suspension, and you can alter the height of the chassis as well, depending obviously on what you need. So if you do need that little bit extra height, you're going over a sort of like a, I don't know, a rough piece of ground, or you're going through sort of like a piece of water or something, absolutely perfect. And also as well, in terms of the way the car distributes the power, is really clever. It's got very clever torque kind of vectoring. If you're on loose surfaces, the car really will come into its own and distribute the power very evenly, and you hardly notice where the power is actually going. As before, we've got the different drive modes, which are done via this toggle on the steering wheel here, this little wheel, which I really like. Very similar now, Hyundai are copying it on the Ioniq 5. But with this little drive mode, we've got range, which obviously gives us a eco mode, if you like, where it tells me now that I can only do a maximum of 60 miles an hour. And it will try and get all the very, very last bits of battery out of the car. From that, I go into normal, which is pretty much what I've been driving the car in. Or we can flick through now to sport, and everything kind of hunkers down, the chassis goes into its sport mode, and the dampers firm up a little bit more, and I just get that little bit more aggression in the car in terms of the throttle response and the way the car will behave in the middle of the bend. We go one more and we're in Sport Plus. This is where things go really extreme. You might see the camera shake a bit now. Dampers are really firm. You know, if you're on a track or you're on a beautiful kind of lovely sweeping A road, very smooth, and you just get the car just set up nicely. And the weight distribution feels really proper in the car as well. As I just sort of like get the car set up for a bend and I just fling it in, it just gives me that extra bite from the chassis. There we go. And I also get that Porsche dynamic sound, which I absolutely love. They haven't tried to emulate an engine sound. It's proper sci-fi spaceship noise, and I absolutely love it. That's an option, and it's an option that is worth ticking. Trust me, I love that. In fact, I'm going to do it again. Here we go, there we go. Let's just give it a bit of beans down here. You can't tire of that, you really can't. Anyway, I'm being childish, but I love it. I really do. I think the car is just dynamically phenomenal for what it is. And as I said to you before, who doesn't love a cool, fast estate car? They just tick every box that you would need. The last option on that little wheel is individual, and that's obviously where you can go in and set the car up how you like it personally. You know, you want to slacken the dampers off, excuse me, but have a slightly more aggressive throttle. You can do all that and set it just into how you want it. But yeah, this is a playful car. I really love it. I really do. It is, I mean, I've always loved the Taycan. I think it is a sensational car. I think it's one of Porsche's best looking designs. The fact that they have taken electric power and properly engineered it. And as I say, now you've just got that extra little bit ability, you know, just to go off the beaten track. And if you're calling into question why Porsche needs to go off the beaten track, and all you can think of at this point is a Cayenne or a Macan, then let me tell you this. Historically, if you look back, Porsche 911 Safari on the rallies, they were renowned for it. And of course, my personal favourite, the raised height 959 on the Paris Dakar. So yeah, they've got history here with this type of car. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a proper Porsche. I love it, I really do. It's phenomenal, and it never fails to put a smile on my face. God, I don't want to give this car back, I really don't. Look, Porsche, it's my birthday, come on. Let me keep it for a little bit longer, yeah? Come on. Maybe until my next birthday, okay? No? Okay. Worth asking. So what's all of this going to cost you? Well, as I say, you don't get the Cross Turismo with the single motor rear wheel drive variant. So pricing starts with the Taycan 4 Cross Turismo, and that starts at £81,000. Then you go through the 4S, which this one is, the Turbo, and then the Turbo S, which tops out at £140,000, and that's obviously before options, and these prices are correct at time of filming. This particular car we have here is the 4S, and this starts at just over £88,000, but the car we have here is optioned up to £112,000. So therefore it has £24,000 near as damn it of options, or to put it another way, the same cost as the only other electric estate car on the market, the MG5. No one said excellence was going to be cheap. So in terms of competition, therefore, what are you going to be looking at? Because I say the only other electric estate car on the market is that MG5 at £25,000, and that's a whole different ballgame altogether. Well, you're probably going to consider things like the Audi e-tron S, that triple motor one that we tested a little while back, and on the Sportback and Vorsprung edition, price-wise, that starts at just over £100,000 before options, so that's quite close by to it. Jaguar I-Pace, yeah, I suppose if you spec an I-Pace up in HSE trim and tick a load of boxes, you're pretty much hitting close to sort of like £100,000, and it too is that more kind of performance orientated, slightly raised ride height rather than a full SUV, I think. But it's quite a narrow kind of market space, unless of course you do start comparing it to piston engine contemporaries such as the Audi's excellent RS6 Avant. Will Audi do an e-tron GT Avant? I don't know. It'd be interesting if they did, and if they did, given Audi's excellence at doing fast estate cars, that would be a really interesting comparison to do. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the Porsche Taycan 4S Cross Turismo. We like its performance, its ride and handling, It's styling. The fact that it provides enough off-road ability for most people's use. And of course, the Porsche DNA. We don't like the price with options. It's not quite as engaging to drive as the rear-wheel drive car, but little else. So as our time with the Taycan Cross Turismo comes to an end, how do we summarise it? Well, if you're a regular viewer, you'll know we're big fans of the Taycan on the channel. In fact, I am on record as saying I think the standard rear drive saloon is probably the pick of the Taycan range because it's got slightly better steering feel, a bit better chassis balance, and it gives you, well, the most range if you option it with the Performance Plus battery, and it's the cheapest. So therefore it kind of ticks all of the boxes. Well, not quite all of them, because you see this ticks the final box for me, the practicality side of it, and that is important to me as a family man who enjoys things like cycling and dog walking and doing all those other things that we get outside into the countryside now we're able to and do. In fact, it calls into question the need even for a big SUV, because we don't really use them like they're supposed to be used, and if we do go off the beaten track, what more do you need than something like this? So I'm willing to give up that steering precision, that chassis balance, for the extra practicality the Cross Turismo gives me. And not forgetting, I happen to also think it's now the best looking of the Taycans as well. Up until now, if someone said to me what my ultimate EV has been, it's always been the Jaguar I-Pace, because I've always said that that is big enough and it has, just as I say, enough off-road ability. It has searing performance and it has the quality of design that I expect from a Jaguar. Well, I'm sorry, the king is dead. Long live the king. Thank you for watching AutoEV. As always, remember, like and subscribe to the channel. Press the little bell button down below so you get notified when our next video goes live. Also remember, we're all on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of that. Give us a like if you will, please. And remember, head across to autoev.co.uk for all the latest news, reviews and musings from the electric car world. I know that's exactly what I'm going to do now, especially seeing as it's my birthday. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.